So this week, grade 12 pupils begin writing their final exams, at least of their 12-year schooling career, give or take. The results will most likely shape their chosen paths, and with these also comes a lot of pressure to try and do well. Joining us now to, I guess, unpack how to mentally prepare for this important moment is educational specialist advisor Thabang Mashigo, who's with us now via our video link. And Thabang, thanks very much for speaking to us here on Newzroom Afrika. And I guess we've all, at least most people, have been through what it takes to make it through a matric year. I imagine in some respects, outside of the academics, it's about dealing with the incredible anxiety that comes with just what it takes to make it through the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely, and thank you very much for having me, and hello to the viewers as well. I think this doesn't only apply to matriculants, but to every academic or student out there. We're students of life after all. I think before you provide content in everything, you've got to understand the context. And most importantly, the anxiety that have risen as a result of the unpredictability and the difficulty that the pandemic has presented, not only with the sickness and disease, but also a lot of people have experienced incredible, or rather insurmountable amount of loss. So that's the context that we're dealing with. And so when it comes to preparation, the first premise that I'd like to provide in this interview is, through eliminating anxiety, what do we need to do? We need to kill routine and actually find our own. We're very good with following trends and patterns, but at times we fail to set our own. And I think this comes in with basic nuances. For example, if you study better at night, do that. If you're more productive during the day, do that. So set a routine and engage in a pattern that works for you and that is easy for you to adapt to. I also say the second thing is, what is the goal? We often pressurize our students or our kids who are in matric, that you've got to get distinctions, you've got to pass mathematics and so forth. And when they look at that goal, they fail to engage in the process. So it's very important for you to sit down as a guardian, as a parent, even as yourself as a student, to say, I'm not just doing this to pass, but perhaps I want to be an architect. Maybe I want to be a scientist and so forth. So I need this process to get to that. And once you understand your goal, you then look at the people that are needed to ensure that the goal is successful. So I would then advise to also alleviate the anxiety, to have focus groups with people that share a common vision, one. Two, people that understand their own trends and their own patterns. So, for example, students can engage in a Zoom meeting or Microsoft meeting at 12 midnight because, as earlier mentioned, they are more productive. And lastly, just to answer your question, once you've allocated the people, you then look into the resources that are needed to then achieve that goal.
I want to just hone in on one of those things that you've mentioned there, Thabang, and that's this idea of finding your own rhythm. Typically, there are many people who've come before the current cohort of matric students who are going to try superimpose what worked for them, as opposed to encouraging them to feel out and find what might individually work for these matriculants. How important is it to focus on carving out, call it that specialized way of working, which won't be the same for any different pupil, quite frankly?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think once you find your own rhythm, and this is also in the context of life, it is easier to flourish. So once you're focused, you are able to flourish. And hence earlier mentioned that also part of alleviating the anxiety is making sure that the stakeholders around you don't put as much pressure on you. And this is where the communication comes in, communicating your needs as well, because no one knows you better than you. And so with the people that you need, remember we set the goal, the people and the resources, with the people that are around you, which your family plays a critical role in that. Communicating your desires are very critical. And also, if you are a parent, it's also important to engage your child on asking them, what is it that you need?
Right.
Do you need space? Do you need 1 hour a week to take it easy? Do you need the weekend to, even setting small achievements for yourself to say, once I study this chapter, my rest will be going for yoga, or my rest will be going to the gym. So have small rewards to help you, achieve that particular goal. So it's very important to set your own trend, and it's very important to be self-aware. How do we do that? I think social media plays a very critical role, and it's also learning to set boundaries, not only as a student, but also the support system that is around that child. Those boundaries help people better understand one themselves, two, better manage themselves, and also their academia.
Right.
But lastly, just on that point, Ayanda, this might sound so philosophical, but every pain in life breeds a promise. So you need to also engage with the promise that you have to yourself. And that promise comes with some sort of a commitment. So part of setting that trend and carving your own is committing to yourself and committing to the future that you desire to achieve.
Right. Interesting you speak of social media. I mean, the other difficulty that comes with being a matriculant really is the sense of being left behind, the sense of not being necessarily in the in-group. I mean, I guess anecdotally, people can also speak of their own experiences, how even in a context of a study group, there's a temptation to compare in unproductive ways, right? How do we, I guess, navigate that complexity?
I would rather say that, once again, you know what works for you. But also you're right, when it comes to a class of matriculants, whether it's 2021 or 2017, there will be that competition. But how do you use competition, or how do you use certain limitations, not as barriers, but as tools to achieve the next goal? And this is where also, even on social media, there's a lot of the times, I mean, last month we celebrated, suicide and anxiety as well as depression awareness, because we have 300 million citizens in the world that are diagnosed with anxiety, depression for all sorts of reasons. But one of them are this, and we know what is prominent in this country and in the society amongst young people is suicide. And the suicide and the depression and all these pressures come as a result sometimes of social media. So for me, how do we navigate the nuances that you were speaking about? It comes through affirmation. What is the first thing you think about, or what is the first thing that you can do to affirm yourself, or rather even as a guardian and as a parent to affirm your child, to remind them that they are enough? Remember, whether you pass with 85% or 60%, we are all passing.
Right.
If you fail with 12% and 35%, we are all failing. Right. So this does not eliminate personal goals to say, I want to get 7 distinctions and so forth. However, it also goes back to saying, this is, my dream, but these are my efforts. If your child, that their strength is in mathematics and not in art, or their strength is in art and not in mathematics, support where they need the assistance, but also affirm their strengths. And more than anything, to navigate some of the challenges that you were speaking about this morning, it's affirmation in all respects, whether it's watching things on a YouTube video or on television that are going to accentuate, encourage you, and eliminate any kind of flaws or any kind of or reminder of your weaknesses. You've got to remove that. But the most important thing is using barriers and using limitations as a platform or as an opportunity to step up.
Sobering pearls of wisdom on this Tuesday morning. Thank you so much for your indulgence. Really do appreciate it. And hopefully from your words, or from your lips to the ears of the many matriculants who, I imagine, are desperate to hear the kind of messaging you have to give today. Thanks very much. Thabang Mashigo is an educational specialist advisor speaking to us there as we, I guess, try aid the matriculants in ways through which we can through this important moment of their lives as they enter their exam period. Once again, Thabang, thanks very much indeed.